Right now, I'm joined in the studio by John Coleman, history professor in Notre Dame's College of Arts and Letters. His research focuses on early America and the American West, and his book, Here Lies Hugh Glass, is particularly relevant right now because it tells the real story behind Leonardo DiCaprio's Best Actor winning performance in The Revenant. John, welcome to Notre Dame Day.
Thanks.
All right, we were talking about this before we came up here. So how did Hugh Glass's story spark this type of movie?
Well, he's famous for nearly being eaten by a grizzly bear in 1823.
Yes.
And he was horribly mauled. The bear grabbed his head and ripped up his back. And he was such a mess that they thought he was going to die. So the men that he was with, their captain bribed two men to stay with him until he died, and they traveled on. The men lingered with him for a couple days. He didn't die. They left him, and instead of dying, he got on his hands and knees and crawled for 200 miles, and he swore revenge on the men who left him.
So how did Hollywood even hear of him? I mean, I'm sure this is not, and how did you even hear of him? I mean, how does this story spark that kind of attention?
Well, he's an obscure guy, but he's kind of a B-list American celebrity.
B-list, I like it.
There's been poems written about him. There was a novel written about him in the 50s, a movie in the 1970s. So he's been around, and the story is pretty famous.
So what he went through to survive, as you were just kind of talking about, I mean, what does this say about American exceptionalism?
Well, he was an exceptional guy in that he could survive and endure that much. But really what made him exceptional was the story. And Americans picked up on the Hugh Glass story to kind of explain themselves to the rest of the world. In a way, he was a way for Americans to distinguish themselves from Europeans, the people that they once were, and also Native Americans, because he was an example of a guy that was remade by nature on the American frontier. So he was uniquely American in ways that other people weren't.
Now, are there other Hugh Glasses out there, people that may be a little bit more obscure, but people that entered the frontier that could theoretically have a similar movie be made about their experiences?
Well, if I had a few tens of millions of dollars sitting around, I would probably invest in the story of James Beckwourth.
Okay.
James Beckwourth is a former slave from St. Louis who was also a mountain man, and he spent years living with the Crow Indians, and he had numerous adventures in the West, and I think that would be an excellent movie.
And a lot of do you see a shift, or do you think that there is these kind of rich storylines, especially of the frontier, that we haven't really tapped into yet in terms of mass knowledge?
Well, I mean, the Western has been around, the Western movie has been around forever, but I think that, yeah, there's always excellent stories out there that could, with the right director and an actor like Leonardo DiCaprio, could be made into something spectacular.
All right, well, thank you so much, John, for joining us on Notre Dame Day.